So Josh, do you remember Cliff Notes?
Yeah, of course.
Well, the modern day version of this is called Blink List. You can read books or listen to books that are summarized in 15 to 20 minutes. So I feel like when I do that, if I read, can I say that I've read 2 or 3 books in a week? Is that something I can say? Or do I just not have an attention span and I have ADHD and a real problem? Maybe I'm a lost boy.
Maybe you are. We'll find out
on this episode of The Back Nine. So yeah, it's a really cool app, but it's basically what Cliff Notes were when we were younger.
I don't think you can say that you've read the book. I would never have said in the day of when I used Cliff Notes, if I only read the Cliff Notes, that I'd read the book.
Yeah.
I did enough to get by on the test or the paper or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You could, if you're listening to a podcast at 1 1/4 speed, so it's faster, that's okay. You've listened to the podcast. You've just listened to it. I mean, you don't get our mellifluous vocal ranges when you do that, but
yeah, it does. You do know that I do have that issue. I have the attention span issue. For me to sit and read a book is very, very difficult. So this listening to getting the gist of a book in 15 minutes, and I don't even read. They have so you can read it on the app in 15 or 20 minutes, or you can actually listen to it. So I even listen to the summation on Blink List, but I do it while I'm working out. So it's like a double thing. I'm getting maybe a self-help book, maybe a financial. I only do nonfiction. So.
Well, I can see it working for nonfiction.
I don't think I'd ever do it for fiction. That seems like ridiculous that you would do it.
The thing about reading now, for me, is where I have time in my day to really do it is at night, and especially before I go to bed. But I don't find it relaxing. I get caught up in the story and thinking about the story, and I have a hard time putting a book down if I'm into the story, which a good book should do, right? And so then I end up staying up until 1:32 in the morning and getting like 4 hours of sleep, which isn't enough. And so I struggle with that. I want to read more. I want to read more fiction. I want to read more perspectives.
Yeah,
these are
I wish I could. I mean, I know a lot of people love to sit and read. It's therapy for them. They can unwind that way. I've never had the attention span. I think I want to kind of make it a New Year's resolution, but I don't want to fail. Like I want to make it a resolution that I want to read something, like actually read a full book.
Well,
Sounds ridiculous.
If you don't do that, you will fail because you won't read the book, right? If it's not a resolution. If you at least put it out there, you've got a one chance at it.
All right.
I believe in you.
When this airs, it's a new year.
Yes.
It's a New Year's resolution. And I did make that Lost Boy reference for a reason. We are joined now by Matthew Atkinson, the owner of Lost Boys, which I have a great story about this. So I'm in Key West for Rebecca's birthday, her 50th birthday, and we're out there and we are looking for pizza in the afternoon. And the pizza place that was recommended, you recommended it, was closed. So we start wandering around and we go down this side street and there's a sports bar there and sure enough, they have pizza. We sit down, we watch a little college football, we have pizza and a beer, and I'm rolling out of the restaurant. Across the street, I see this cool logo and this sign and I'm like, Lost Boys, that's really cool. So I went into the store and Matt wasn't there. Matt, who was there? Your other counterpart was there. One of your guys that works there was.
It must have been Sean that was
there. It was Sean. Yep. Now that you say it. So Sean's there and he tells me the story about the owner, that he had a place on
Matt.
That would be Matt, who's joining us right now. That would be Matt, who had a place on St. John, got blown away in Irma, and shifted gears from creating the Lost Boys store from St. John into Key West. So Matthew, I don't know what brought me in the store that day, but it brought us here, and you have such a cool story. I'm going to let you finish the story. Take us through. Thank you for joining us. Take us through what happened. Hurricane Irma was, 2017? And then, it devastated St. John, which is one of my favorite places on the planet. And yeah, take us through the rest of it, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has a special place in a lot of people's hearts, I think. But yeah, it was September 6, 2017. It's not a date that many people will forget that were living down there or that love that spot. And I mean, most of us at that point were just a cautionary tale. A lot of people lost everything. We were one of them. But it was a special place. It was kind of a catching lightning in a bottle between the community and the people that were involved down there, the businesses. It was great. And then all of a sudden, everyone's life was just uprooted in a matter of, a day and a half. And the struggle to kind of bring back what they had and we had as a community, It was tough. And so I wound up here in Key West. My ex-girlfriend, at the time we were together and she used to live here. And it was an easy transition for us. The options were pretty much go back to Connecticut or New York when it was about to be fall and live in suburbia, or come back to another sunny island that isn't quite all there, kind of like St. John was.
Right.
So the fit seemed about appropriate. And to be totally honest, I had no intentions of really even starting this when I was here. I had every intention of going back to St. John. It was where I thought I'd live the rest of my life. I was pretty hell bent on that, making sure that that was going to be where I called my home forever. And one thing just led to another, and kind of, the way that life unfolds, you never know exactly how or why it's going to happen the way it does. And I found a little tiny shop on Petronia Street, which is down by Blue Heaven, one of the landmarks here in Key West, and just got this thing going as a hobby for myself to keep myself busy. You come from a community that was so tight knit, like St. John was, and I had my routine. I would go surf. I knew who was going to be working at what restaurants. We'd go hiking. We'd go to the beach. Go over to Joost Van Dyke for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden to not have it. So I kept doing this woodworking that I was doing in St. John. It was kind of a concept that I had started there of finding a way to just live like a big kid forever and not ever grow up. And hence the name. My family, my parents used to call me the lost boy living in Neverland, because that's what it was. I'm sure you can attest to, Dennis. It's the real life Neverland there. We did it up, and we were building tree houses and boats and surfboards and whatever we really wanted. And this little logo seemed to kind of jump off the page at a lot of people, and started selling t-shirts and hats out of my truck. And every intention was to open that store down in Cruz Bay in St. John. And then here comes Irma, and she blows us away. And I wound up here, and it just it snowballed. It just kept rolling and kept getting bigger. And, I had, again, no intentions of starting it here. But the day before we moved into this new shop on Southern Street, right across from the sports bar you were mentioning, Big Cheese's, I had this epiphany that, oh my gosh, it was literally like the business plan I had written out all of a sudden was in person, and it had materialized. And I didn't even recognize it until it was staring me right in the face. So it was a really cool moment of realization that the dream had been kind of secured, and it's been recognized, and it was wild. And we've been here since. So it's been about almost 4 years now in this location.
Well, congratulations on that. And you and Dennis are obviously symbiotic. Dennis is wearing appropriately the Soggy Dollar hat from Joost Van Dyke. You alluded to your parents calling you a lost boy, and it makes sense. But how do you define what a lost boy is? How have you leaned into that existence? What does it mean to you to be a lost boy?
It's funny you ask. I've been talking to a bunch of we do a lot with the music industry. It's just been a kind of a happen circumstance kind of thing. And I always ask people what it means to live like a lost boy. That's our slogan. And for me, I think it's following exactly what you want to do. And growing up, I came from a pretty, normal American family. My parents, we married one of 5 kids each. It was, you go to school, you graduate, you go to college, you get a job, you find your wife, you have kids, and you do it all over. And they always supported kind of my dreamer mentality, doing the things that were kind of off the beaten path. I knew from a young age I wanted to move to the islands. I got to travel there a lot when I was a kid. And so that was kind of stuck in the back of my brain for a while. And they always supported that. And when I finally did it, they were the ones that kind of provoked it and told me to do it and follow my heart and follow my dreams. And I think as soon as I decided I was going to do it, they both bit their tongues a little bit and were like, wait, you're really going to do it? So I wound up moving down there. I'd never been to the islands, and, packed a bag and just caught a flight, and no idea where I was going to live or what I was going to do or where I was going to stay. But that was kind of that, following your dreams, following your heart, and just doing what you love, what makes you really tick. It could be your bowling league on a Friday night. It could be hiking in the Appalachian Trail for months on end. It could be softball league, whatever it is that makes you tick. And we're kind of in the terms of Peter Pan, think happy thoughts, find your happy place. That's really what it means to us.
Well, I love that you were able to find that at a young age and know that. And it has to be a little bit from your parents, right? You got into it a little bit. But I think about our generation and, and my kids. And how did you get the inspiration? Because you're right. Like, we were not taught to do that. We were not taught to necessarily do that. We were more of what you were saying before, have the kids, have the family, do all that. Now we're exploring a lot of things on the back nine because we wish we had done it at your age, right? So are you finding that? Are you finding people that are on the back nine saying, man, I wish I had that mentality when I was your age?
100%. And, honestly, I consider myself lucky. The majority of my friends are still of the same mentality that, I kind of grew up with. I would dream and fantasize about the National Geographic magazines I read when I was a little kid and, these faraway places. We've got a unique generation just being a special age group that grew up before the internet and social media and being able to just go find these spots, not only find them, but literally type in on a computer how to get there, how much it's going to cost, who's going to take you there. That wasn't a thing. There was this explorer mentality that I had growing up that I loved and, wanting to find something that was unique and different. And most of my friends kind of fall into the same category, though, where they are. They're structured, they graduated college, et cetera. I think that I found it through that little drive of wanting to explore and seeing these fascinating places. And I'm really fortunate. My friends in high school and stuff, they would always have the newest Jordans or the newest set of golf clubs or whatever. My parents didn't exactly believe in that stuff, but they took me a lot of places when I was young. That was a big thing. Our Christmases, our birthdays, it was, hey, we're going to save up and we're going to go to the Cayman Islands. We're going to go to the Grand Canyon, or we're going to go to Turks and Caicos or wherever. So I was exposed to it when I was young. And I think that really shaped my core values, and getting exposed to a lot of different cultural aspects too was super important.
How are you able to continue that attitude now? I mean, you own a business, right? There's some grown-up responsibilities with that. So how do you stay youthful and in that youthful passion while also being an adult? Is there a responsible way to do that? And how have you managed it?
Man, I can answer that a lot of ways. I don't know if I should answer it certain ways. There is. I catch myself with it all the time. I'm here in my wood shop where we build all these paddle boards, and this is my passion. This is what drove me to start the surf shop aspect. The retail is what pays for the hobby, and it goes with the traveling and the exploring as well. You got to have a good balance, and there's definitely a lot of times, people are like, "Oh gosh, you own a business. You must be working 80 hours a week." I should be, but I probably work, 50. And I try to disconnect when I can, which I think is the most important. And taking into consideration that these exploratory journeys of finding yourself and finding the exact mentality which has made Lost Boy what it is it's vitally important. I've tailored a position and a job for myself where it requires me going out and doing the fun stuff. It's what you make of it. I could probably be a few steps ahead if I buried myself in here every day, all day for 15 hours a day. I'm sure that we'd be a couple steps ahead in the retail industry, but I need to justify that with actually living a life worth living.
So, yeah, I mean, that again, you're not motivated entirely by money. We all need money, right? Like we all need money to survive. You're living in a very expensive place. Now trying to live and survive on St. John. I had a daughter who did it for 3 years. It's the reality is you can try to live that life, but you can't live it 100% because you do have a responsibility to make money. It's expensive to live these days. So yeah. So how do you find that balance?
Well, I think that it gives me an extra drive. The work that we put in it's hard. It's a lot. When we are going, we're moving, we're grinding, whether it be here in the wood shop, building a board, whether it's doing some marketing events. We do, like I said, a lot of different musical events. We go to concerts, we sponsor different events and things like that. We're headed to Reggae Rise up in the spring in St. Pete, the country's biggest reggae festival. And we always have a big part in that. So whenever we're on, we're really on. But that work-life balance, you have to take it in stride. It's interesting to see how people perceive the travel that we do and everything like that. I mean, when I'm here and I'm in Key West, it is exceptionally expensive. St. John was exceptionally expensive. We've also positioned ourselves where we have a day off and we're already on vacation. We don't need to travel. So we're already there. The days that we're working, we might work 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 days in a row, but then we take those 2 days off and we're already in this beautiful spot that we get to enjoy every day, get on a boat. And it makes the days off taste that much sweeter.
I'm not actually sure that we said in this podcast what it is that Lost Boys does. When you say you sponsor events, what is the product that's coming out of the store, and how does it apply when you're at an event? What are you guys actually doing there?
So funny enough, the shop, the business itself started as a woodworking company, building these paddle boards and surfboards.
Building paddle boards. Okay.
Yeah.
And surfboards. Yeah.
That was the core, and still is. It's kind of the backbone to the whole business as far as the substance behind the brand, if you may. We had some t-shirts and some hats to advertise for the business when I was still living in St. John, and they got a lot more recognition than the woodwork did, and it kind of it kept going. So we've turned into an adventure lifestyle brand, a brand, a clothing company that captures a certain demographic and a certain mentality. Our ideology is exactly that, of live like a lost boy. Enjoy the time that you have off. If you got to work hard, but try to do something you love. Try to do something you're passionate about.
And to that end, I mean, the brand has made a mark. So what is most gratifying about what you've accomplished with it so far?
I think the magnitude and the reach of where we've gotten, kind of touching again on the music scene, that's just a passion. This whole business has kind of turned into a catch-all for our passion, whether it be fishing, surfing, woodwork. And it's been so organic and so serendipitous the way that it's grown. All of these kind of strange concepts that wouldn't necessarily fit together, they all fit together under this umbrella, which is this lost boy mentality. Seeing the reach and seeing how far away I've seen hats or t-shirts, I'll get phone calls or a message from somebody in Alaska say, oh wait, I just ran into somebody out in this river fly fishing and they've got a Lost Boy hat on. Or, I was in Milan in the airport and I was going up the escalator and some guy was coming down in a sweatshirt. It's wild to see how much it's traveled. And I think it's the exact mentality we discussed before about, really living like a lost boy that has made it has given the appeal to such like a traveling demographic, people that are trying to live that life, trying to embrace it.
Well, and I think it sounds like it's multi-generational, sort of like why you're probably tied to reggae music, because my experience in that genre of music is that you can go to a reggae concert, and I guess a lot of concerts are like this, but I feel like reggae fits this as much as any genre of music. It is all ages. I mean, it is crazy the diversity of age that you see in a big reggae show. And I'm sure Reggae Rise Up's the same way. I'd love to go some year. But I would say, and your brand probably, it's probably skews a little younger, but everybody wants to have that. That's what we're talking about on the back nine. I want to literally live the Lost Boy mentality. That's like, that's what I want to be now.
Yeah.
At 54.
Surprisingly, I think we probably almost unintentionally target a lot of people on the back nine, because it's the realization we had of this at a younger age. But to live the back nine the way you guys are and embracing it, it's something you gotta lay the groundwork for first. And I think that a lot of people a few years older than I am have seen the work and the idea behind it, and they've grown attached to it. And the reggae scene's growing so fast.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the bands and the size of these events are getting so big, and it embodies a lot of who we are, and the music, it lends itself to kind of that same, I don't know, adventurous mentality.
Island vibe. Yeah.
And I think a lot of us admire that mentality, and the fact that, people who are, a half generation behind us, kind of the, I guess early millennials is probably where I'd slot you, have embraced that at your age, earlier in your case, as opposed to us who are coming to it later. And so what are the plans now going forward? Where does the brand go from here?
No, we really want to build upon what we started here. We don't really have a plan for, more retail shops per se. I think, as Dennis could probably attest to it, it's pretty hard to replicate what we've got here. It's such a unique space. We want to continue to build the brand as a way of life and kind of get it onto a national scale and get our mentality out there and use it as a kind of a jumping off point for hosting some events, maybe a music festival or something like that along the way, and kind of taking advantage of these amazing connections that we've made through our travels, whether it be St. John or through Key West or people coming into the shop, and show people that there is an alternative way to be successful and to enjoy your life, as opposed to what so many of us were kind of brought up, the American dream mindset of this. There are alternative ways of thinking and being successful, and truly, more importantly than that, enjoying the way you live your life.
So Matthew, as your older business consultant here, I'm going to just say, stay online, like keep doing the online sales, right? No overhead. Like you can just, you control your product situation. Like you don't have to have a lot of, but I wouldn't hate a little pop-up store in St. John. I'm just going to say that. I'm saying
I would love it too.
A little pop-up store in St. John might be the trick, but otherwise I'm 100% with you. The brand can grow without you doing a bunch of retail stores, because that's a lot of, that's going to be a bigger headache for you. And you can probably grow this thing with just, retail sales online, right?
We've got a handful of locations kind of picked out as far as where we would open maybe a little pop-up shop. St. John obviously would be the first, just because that's where it all started. All of our hats have the Concord Public flag on the one side, which is where we are now, and the Virgin Island flag here, which is where we started.
Love it.
A little homage to then and now. But man, the online thing, it's a tough cookie to crack. And kind of in a weird way, me, the old soul kind of person where technology is not my friend, it makes it very difficult. So I'm learning a whole new skill set, and that's where that grind comes in. You were talking about before. I mean, there's going to be those days of 15 hours, 16 hours of just grinding and trying to understand this new technology, this marketplace that I'm not familiar with.
Well, love what you're doing, and, keep at it. There are going to be people who are on this side of that effort, that grind, that are going to appreciate it. You're onto something. So keep up the great work, Matt.
And we're going to stay in touch. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously we want to have you on the podcast, but there's other reasons why I walked into the store that day. Not to get too spiritual on you, but to just the randomness of it, it sticks with me, Matt. And I'm super excited for you. And I'm sure that we'll run into each other on St. John or back out in the Keys again. Love both places. So yeah, keep that Lost Boys soul, and we'll be joining you with it too.
Yeah, serendipity is the way this thing has kept moving. So there was a reason you came in that day.
Yeah, appreciate it, Matthew. Thank you so much.
Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Good luck with everything.
Pleasure.
Yeah. I'm struck, right? Kismet with you meeting him earlier in the season, Kismet with me sitting next to Deneen Milner on an airplane, and 2 really good interviews. And what strikes me about this conversation, there's something somewhat ironic in that my takeaway is that he's not lost at all. He is totally leaning into what his passion is and the thing that he was born to do. And I find that incredibly admirable that he was able to tune out societal pressures to be very much in touch and on track with his spiritual being.
So I really only have one takeaway from this one to give to people, because I'm going to take it with me, because it's not realistic for us to be a lost boy every day of our life as much as we'd like to. But what he said was he's not even anymore. He's running a business.
Of course.
But on his days off, he's a lost boy. He's living like a kid. He's living an adventure. That's the piece we can take away. We can take away that we can be shut off from work. We can be shut off of our devices. We can be doing what's fun and fills us up and important to us on our off days. We'd love to be doing it every day, but he's not even doing it every day. He's grinding to run a business. So he's saying to the world, take some time to be a lost boy. Work 40, 50 hours a week, but the rest of the time, take your time to do
or
that.
30, 40, or whatever it might be, right? I think that's right, Dennis. I think, there's a point if you are 100% a lost boy, there's a point in life where that just becomes irresponsible. But the commitment to remembering what it is that brings you joy and seeking that out actively, I think that was for a long time lost, no pun intended, on our generation. We didn't do that. Certainly the generation ahead of ours, right, also didn't do that, the boomers, right? But I think maybe you disagree. You're making a face.
No,
like
I don't. I'm thinking. I think I totally agree with you.
And I feel like the millennials and the Gen Zers the Gen Zers who are all into the gig economy, right? They don't want to buy into corporate America because they want to be able to have the mobility and the motility, to stay with the things that really motivate them. And I think all of that's admirable. And I think those are good lessons to take away, that at some point, again, we have things that we need to do for ourselves and to prepare for things that come along in the second half, the back nine of life. But it's equally important, and we've had other guests who've spoken to this, to stay in touch with the things that really make us sing.
Okay. I'll give you one more thing. It wasn't just one thing. One more thing is, don't be provincial. His parents were terrific, showing him the world, getting him out of it, like his suburbia life. So many of us only live in our little tiny bubble, and it limits you, it limits your kids, it limits everything. Get out of your bubble, see the world, and I can't afford it. You can figure it out. My parents saved a jar of change every year from their tip money. They were both kind of in the service industry. They would cash that in for dollar bills, and we made a trip to Cape Cod. Time I was 7, my dad moved to Cape Cod. Like, there's things that you can remember in your childhood. Like, those are lasting memories of my parents being as adventurous as they could be when they didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah. There's a world out there to explore. You can only see so much of it. In fact, you really can't see any of it if you're confined to your own 4 walls.
Absolutely. Another great show. I love that we are really exploring, people on the front nine to help that generation, because I'm learning stuff this season with the front nine folks. It's not just about being on the back nine and looking back with perspective. It's taking these younger people and giving you their perspective, which allows you to live a better life on the back nine.
And being able to learn from them as well. I'm learning a lot from our guests who have taken us there.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on another edition of the Back Nine. We will be right back here, same place, same time next week.